In this tutorial, I'll be showing you some finish work, some weaving in of ends, and how to sew on some trim pieces. For the flag border, if you haven't already tucked in your ends, I'll show you how I like to do it where it's almost invisible. So thread a yarn needle and then go to the back of the border and find some stitch bottoms. You're going to take your yarn needle and push it through those stitch bottoms. Once you've gone through about 8 or 10 stitch bottoms, go ahead and pull your yarn needle through, and then you're going to work back up those same stitch bottoms. You don't want to go in right where you came off. Skip one strand and then push your yarn needle back up through the same stitch bottoms. Once you've worked your way back up through, go ahead and pull the yarn needle through. Try not to pull it too snug or you will gather your work. Make sure that the strand that is in those stitch bottoms is just kind of laying there nicely and not gathering your work. Again, one last time, skip one strand, work back through, and then pull through. Remove your yarn needle. Give a tiny little pull so you get past your stitches when you trim. You don't want to cut your stitches that you've made, and then pull it back in and it should slip right up inside. Do the other border side the same way, and now I'll show you how to do the skirting bottom. The top strand of the skirting bottom, you do have the stitch bottoms from our first row of single crochets, so do it the same way, back and forth 3 times. But this bottom one, we have some chain spaces before we get to some stitch bottoms, so we're going to work our way weaving it through the chain to move over to get to them. When you do your pull through, again, don't pull too tight or you'll lose that chain space. You want to make it just kind of lay in there. And then, again, weave back and forth through the stitch bottoms 3 times. The last tail you may have may be at the top where you finished off your border. Go ahead and weave it in and out. Here I'm just trimming some tails that I had tucked that were still sticking out, and now you should have no tails. Next, find the center of your double crochet posts from your border. Move over from the center, get your Romanian point lace. You might have already done this because I did show you in a previous video, but every other double crochet post, pull the tail through from your Romanian point lace, and then once you've got it in there, you're going to just pull the whole thing through so that it's right between those. Kind of puff out the strands so that they aren't gathering your border, and then you're going to flip it around and do the other side. Same way, skipping those 2 center ones and going underneath the next one, and every other one, pull through, and then when you get to the end, pull that through. Make sure not to twist it. And once you have it pulled through, go ahead and even out the Romanian point lace so that it lays all the way across from end to end with no extra in the middle, or it might be a little bit extra at the ends. Then I will show you tucking in this tail. The Romanian point lace actually has kind of a center, so go ahead and go down through the center, and here you're going to make like a C with your yarn. Find one strand to go under and then wrap the yarn once around your needle and then pull that through, and that will knot it. So not only do you have a knot at the end of the point lace, but now you have a knot attaching it. Work your way back up through the center of the lace. Skip one strand, go back through, pull it through, give a little tug so you don't trim your work, and then that is now attached. Do the same thing to the other side. Next we will tack down our trim that we made with the double crochets together. Find the center and put it at the center bottom of your flag and spread it out so that it lays all the way from point to point and all the way up each side. I went ahead and pinned mine in place, so while I was sewing it down it stayed where I wanted it to. And you can use the tail from where you began and ended to start tacking it down. Go ahead and go through your flag, and we're going to be using the eyes of our trim work. Coming from behind the flag, come up through the flag and through the eye. And we'll be working back and forth, right side or left side. This I went to the right, went back through the flag and came back up through the eye. This one I'll go from the left side and come up through the next eye. Making sure to get at least one strand from your flag and then through the eye. And this is just tacking it down. Once you get to where you have a little bit of a tail, because we're going to want to tie a knot in the back of the flag with it, go ahead and push your yarn needle straight through the flag and then flip it over. And same thing, make a C with your yarn, one strand, wrap the yarn around your needle, and then pull it through. Again, stitch bottoms. Just pull that yarn strand through, back and forth a couple of times, and that will tuck in that tail. There's many different ways you could sew down the trim. I'm just showing you one way so you have an idea. I do find this tacking down plenty of strength to hold the trim into place. And to continue on, go ahead and get a strand of the same color yarn. I did it like the double length of each side, and then thread your yarn needle and go ahead and go through an eye and pull it through. I left a tail so that I could do the same thing of tucking it in the back by making a knot. Here I wanted to show you, we're going to only be using one strand to be tacking it down. It's really common when you're going along that you end up getting both your tail and your strand that you're using to sew down. So go ahead and make sure that you don't double up while you're sewing, and every once in a while you'll just need to do a little pull so that it shortens your tail. And go back and forth through the flag, right and left, right and left. At the corner though, do a loop around the very corner to hold it in place, kind of like a button, like you're sewing on a button. Then continue on going through the flag and up through the eyes between the puffs. And right here my tail's getting really close where I'm going to sew it in, so I'll give it a little pull, shorten my tail, which then lengthens my strand that I'm sewing with. Continue on till you get to the center of the bottom of the flag. And at the center, do the same thing of looping all the way around the entire piece of trim to really get a nice point corner there. Again, continue on, going up through the eyes, back and forth, right and left. And one last corner to do, loop it around and really get that corner down in the very point. Here I ran out of yarn, so I just went to the back, again making a knot, looping it around my yarn, and tucking in that tail through loop bottoms. Also, don't forget the tail that we did at the top where we began. Do the same thing, make a knot at the back of the flag and tuck in the tail. Then I went up and grabbed the tail from the other trim and used that tail as long as it would go, and finished doing the side with one more strand. Here we're going to sew on our leaves. With a crochet hook, find the center of the base of a point, come up through the back of the star and grab both strands from one of your leaf sets and pull those 2 strands through. Thread a yarn needle in the longest strand and go up 1 stitch through both the star base and your stem. And then you will skip 1 stitch on your stem and go back through the stem and the star base, coming up between the leaves. Go through 1 strand behind the star base and your leaf, few stitches, come up, skip 1 strand and just tack that leaf down, coming back up between the leaves. Go through 1 stitch and come up through the other leaf on the other side, pull through, skip 1 strand, go through the leaf and come back up through the center, skip 1 strand in the stem and come up through that 3rd leaf. Again, skip 1 strand and push it straight through the leaf, tacking it down. Pull it straight through the back, and through the back have your yarn needle work down through the base of the star until you come to your shorter tail. Here, just go ahead and tie a square knot. Your star is going to be eventually sewn down to your flag, so these knots will not show. So you can leave the little tail so the knot will stay tied. Again, there are many different ways you could sew this down. I'm just showing you one way. I like tacking them down because I think it gives the leaf ends kind of a 3D effect, but you could really sew them down on each one. Eventually our oval will go over the top of that. The last tail you may have is from your snowflake border. Again, remembering those chain spaces, weave in and out of them, find some stitch bottoms, and then go back and forth through the stitch bottoms 3 times and trim your tail. Repeat all those instructions for all 3 of your flags, but do not sew down your star or your oval. We will be doing that later. Thanks, and I'll see you soon.